got a live one, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be snarky sparky. So just, buckle up, buttercups. Let's get into it. Whew. New Yorker 8312. God, I love New York. Anyway, you maybe not so much. Snarky sparky. You know what? I need a little water for this. Okay, hold on. Unless your mother physically beat you, you owe her some respect just for being your mother. Thank you for, letting me know where I would owe her respect and under what circumstances. So unless she physically beat me, I'm supposed to respect her. Okay, all right. Let's see. This is going to be a good one. You could at least... Fuck. Oh, it hits different when you read it out loud. I haven't read it out loud. You could at least send her a card or a text message or do something. You know what's funny about that is I've never received a birthday card from my mother. Like even when I was living with her as a little girl. Isn't that crazy? Never thought about that before. Yeah. I guess I'm just doing what she role modeled. Definitely not doing what she role modeled. See, I have 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren, and we're all in relationships and doing quite well. You know why? Because I didn't do what my mother role modeled. Yeah. Okay. And here we go. The Bible had a lot more wisdom when it said, honor your mother and father, for your days will be long in the land God has given you. So I've never read the Bible, admittedly. Also, I'm Jewish, just for anyone who's interested or not interested. I keep my channel very non-denominational, very non-religious by design. Just for the fact that I want to be inclusive of everyone regardless of what their background is or what their belief system is. That being said, I've seen people who have quoted scripture in response to this, and I don't know how it's worded. I just kind of remember as I've read it a time or two when it's shown up on my page. And somebody, if you could drop it in the comment section, I'd really appreciate it. I'm pretty sure there is something in there about also honoring your children before that part of the scripture. I'm like 99, I'll go 90% sure, just because I don't know the order of it. I do know there's something in there about, not torturing and abusing your children and, trying to destroy them. Fuck. Whew, okay. Oh, these people, that would be me, who cut off contact with their parents completely unless their parents are truly evil, are committing a huge mistake, and they are generally not very happy themselves. Why do you fucking care? Why do you care if they're happy or not? Seems to me that if we're going to care about something, we should care about how we stop child abuse. And by the way, that includes emotional violence. Wouldn't it be great if we lived in a world where people like you who come on platforms like mine, instead of coming at me, judging me, deciding what level of abuse or trauma qualifies for my life decisions, would actually go, let's start holding these child abusers accountable for the demise of their relationships with their children. Yeah. Gosh. Hoping you don't have kids, really, truly. But wait, folks, can you see a knife commercial? There's more. I know, don't I look so unhappy? I also look unhappy here. I'm definitely unhappy here. Miserable here. Fucking miserable. Yet my life, ouch. It really, it's out of control and it sucks, I know. Icky dookie. By the way, every household has some degree of emotional violence, some degree of dysfunctionality. I like how you lump those two things together as if they are the same. They are not the same. Emotional violence is something that is methodically, intentionally perpetrated against another human being. In the case of what we're talking about, it's where a parent or parents, in a very patterned, particular way, consistently emotionally violate their children. They don't allow them to ever feel safe. With them as parents, they don't allow them to develop confidence. They don't allow them to feel safe in being loved. They don't allow them exposure to love that's healthy. They don't allow them to reach their full potential. And they do so by violating their trust, by teaching them through example that they are not worthy of being cared for. And then on top of that, the emotional violence can be things like, you're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. It's not the words that leave the mark or the deepest mark, because certainly being called damaged goods all the time, I grew up thinking that that was true. However, that being said, the words didn't have the biggest impact. It was the fact that my mother treated me like I was damaged goods, which doubled down on validating those words to be true. That is what emotional violence looks like, my friend. Well, you're not really my friend, but you know, we would not be friends. Oh, that's for sure. I can't... There is a saying that if you are screwed up when you are... Oh, this is going to be good. There is a saying that if you are screwed up when you are a kid, it's your parents' fault. Okay? And what's being screwed up as a kid? Because kids aren't screwed up. You mean if a child is acting out, is dysregulated, is unhappy, is self-medicating? Do you mean that? Because that's not being a screwed up kid. That's being a kid who's shouting for attention and help, not attention for the sake of attention. That's a child who is either mimicking the behavior that's happening at home or reacting to it. In general, like that's kind of how that rolls out, right? There are no screwed up kids. There are screwed up adults. When we are adults, our brains are fully formed, and if we're playing fuckery, then we are the fucked up ones. If children are playing fuckery, it's because they're literally reacting to the environment that they're not safe in. Let's be very clear about that. However, if you stay screwed up as an adult, it's your fault. Yeah, you're accountable. If as an adult we don't strive to do better, if as an adult we don't go to therapy or seek out materials, not everybody can afford therapy, seek out materials to learn why we do things that we do that aren't healthy, why we maybe can't maintain relationships, why we struggle staying in one job or on one thing and all of that. You know, if we notice, we hopefully do notice our own piece of dysfunctions in the world, if we're struggling to hold down a job, if we're struggling to treat ourselves well, if we're struggling to manage money, manage food, things like that. As adults, I'm agreeing with you here. It is our responsibility to take accountability for our well-being. 100,000 bajillion fucking percent snarky sparky here. The thing is, with kids who grow up under narcissistic abuse, we were always to blame and then later were accountable. We were never without responsibility. Everything was always our doing and our fault. And we took that into adulthood and entered in adulthood because of the way that we were brought up at a great disadvantage. And then when we want to walk away from the people who created that disadvantage, people like you come along and go, it's your fault, you take accountability now. But stay in those relationships, at least send a birthday card. Make it fucking make sense, because the math is not mathing. But wait, there's more. Oh, wait, I'll be right back. You had to go say the F word, didn't you? You had to do it. Well, of course you did. You quoted the Bible. Time to forgive and start to honor your parents to some degree. What degree? What degree should I honor my parent for? What's that even mean? And why? Why is it time to do that? Why isn't it time for them to be people who are accountable? And look, here's what I don't think you understand, and this is what so many people don't understand. We don't actually 9 times out of 10, like 9.5 times out of 10, we don't end up going no contact because of what our growing up experience with that parent was like. Certainly that impacted the formation of the foundation, right? That impacted our love for our parent. I don't love my mother. I look back and I'm like, did I ever love her? And it's like, well, I wanted to be pretty like her when I was a little girl. I wanted to be charismatic like her when I was a little girl, because out in the, in the public, she was a completely different person. Love, I wanted her to love me. I was desperate for her to love me. I would make myself smaller, quieter. I would not show facial expressions. I call it statuing. I would do everything that I could so that I could just be present, and maybe she just loved me because I was being so good. I would, offer to do things for her, make her a cup of tea or whatever, risk my own life going in that kitchen. Because let me tell you something, the minute you leave a mark on the tile, all fucking hell would break loose. Anywhoosie. And oh, by the way, my mother didn't beat me. That wasn't her thing. Emotional violence was her thing. She did drop me out of a 2-story window and broke both my arms. And for the longest time, I didn't put together that she was actually trying to unalive me, and that she wouldn't know that I wouldn't walk away from that time that she dropped me out of the 2-story window. I was 5 or 6 years old. Has nothing to do with why I went no contact. The reason we go no contact is because in our adult life, when we try to have healthy interactions with these types of parents, they refuse to meet us any portion of the way. They are saboteurs of our lives in very active ways. They are emotionally damaging. They are leveraging the wounds that they put into us in the first place. And as we are growing and becoming adults and accountable for our lives, they are still treating us like their property that they can treat any which way they choose. And when the breakdown happens, it happens because they refuse to see us as autonomous human beings who do not belong to them, who were never their property, and they refuse to come to the table at least respecting some very basic human kindness kind of boundaries. A lot of us give up on the accountability part of it. I did. There was a point I didn't care if my mother took accountability. I didn't care if she never admitted the things she did to me. Didn't care. I just wanted to be able to go and do the things that daughters do with their moms. And I told her that. Crickets. That's what I got in return for that. Oh, but wait, there's more. Okay, so this is a comment that you wrote in response to somebody else's comment, and we don't need the context just because you can see the context of this person's way of communicating. We'll call it communication. Yeah, okay. A lot of people who feel they've been abused emotionally, okay, have the mistaken notion that there are houses where there is no emotional abuse. That's actually not true. We think our normal is everybody else's normal. Sometimes we do see other households, like I remember my friends' households where the moms seemed very nice. And then I would remember, but my mother also seems very nice. So, this is our normal. We don't know if it's going on for anybody else or not until we have enough experience to see that contrast. And for me, that occurred when I went to boarding school. So I was sent to boarding school, luckily, and I loved it there, by the way, even though my mother made sure it had no music program, knowing that I had dreams of going to Juilliard. That little girl. Yeah. So she made sure I didn't get, fun little story. Let's talk about emotional violence a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So here's the scene. I am testing for I've had to write this written test, do this whole thing, as entry to qualify for these particular boarding schools. One was Hun Academy in New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, and the other one was Cheshire Academy, and there were a few others as well. I didn't end up touching base with the other ones, but I know that there were other ones because I was told there were other ones. So no, I don't know if there was other ones. I'm believing what I was told, and you'll understand why I'm saying that in just a moment. So my stepfather, this particular stepfather, because there's been a few, and fun fact, I met them all after my mother married them. Yep. He was going to New York to open up drugstores in the Hilton and in the Sheraton. He was in a partnership group with a few other people who owned drugstores. So they had, at the time, this was 1979, I think, 78, 79. They had the drugstores in the Miami airport. They had multiple drugstores around Miami, Palm Beach. Like, they had quite a few stores. And some of the partners, my stepfather being one of them, were pharmacists. So he was going to New York, and we were relocating, but keeping the home in Miami as well for him to open those stores. And eventually, they'd become self-sufficient, whatever, and we would live wherever we were going to live. When this happened, my mother decided that boarding school would be a good option for me, which again, yes, it was. And I was thankful. Anytime I could get away from my mother was a good time. So here I am, and she drives me to Hun Academy, and I go in, and she's sitting out in a waiting room, and it's like what you see in a movie, the kid on the chair and a panel of older people, very intimidating. My mother's not prepped me in any way, shape, or form, just told me I'm going to meet with the school. Didn't tell me anything that was going to happen, just like they're going to decide if they like you or not. She did say that to me. So I go, and I come out, and looking backwards, I recognize my mother didn't have a moment there where she talked to any of the adults before she said this to me. I didn't clock that at the time. And she looked at me and she goes, "You didn't do very well." I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the words she used. I wasn't surprised because of the fact that I never did very well. That's how I looked at myself. Even though I was a really good student, never in trouble in school, got very good grades, people pleaser all the way. So it's hard to be a bad student when you're a people pleaser. And I was just like, kind of shook, I knew it, but hearing her say it, and now I thought, it's going to be a long car ride. It's going to be a lot of, what did you say? Emotional abuse. That's what it was, emotional abuse, whether you think so or not. She berates me in the car, and she told me I didn't get in. There's no effing way she could know if I got in or not. I don't know that because I am 12 years old and I believe anything that comes out of her mouth. So in other words, anything she tells me about who I am, well, to put it in words you can understand, is gospel. Anyway, I end up going to the other boarding school, and the other boarding school was Cheshire Academy, no music program, wonderful school, though I enjoyed it very much. And I learned that you could live in a place where nobody was emotionally violating you, not every day, but not at all, where every day was pretty much the same, and the adults were safe and loving and kind. I saw that day in, day out, an entire school year. And for me, that's actually what made me snap when it came to going back into my mother's household. That's what caused the last time that I ran away. I couldn't go backwards now that I saw that there was a different kind of life out there. P.S. So I run away. I end up living on the streets. I'm 13 years old because my mother tells me I'm not going back to boarding school. After giving me a choice, and I say I want to go back, and then she says no. And 17, social services sends me back to my abusers, no questions asked. And my stepfather let the cat out of the bag without knowing the cat was in the bag. I was on an airplane with him alone, traveling from Miami to Montreal. So I had to think about that because I was sent from Ohio to Miami and then took a plane. My stepfather met me at the airport. We took a plane to Montreal, which is where I'm originally from. And he says, you know, you picked a really, fucking hell, you picked a really good time to run away. And, well, okay, this is me with my little baby girl. This is what I look like. 10 days. No, that picture is probably 2 weeks. 10 days, 2 weeks after being sent back home. Lost. I look at that picture and I see a lost, frightened little girl. Anyway, he says to me, you picked a good time to run away because we were having some financial struggles and I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to afford to send you back to boarding school. And he said to me, you know, like when it came down to it, like I was looking at maybe I'll send you to Hun instead of Cheshire because Hun was less expensive. And I don't think that Hun was less expensive, by the way, but that's what he told me at the time. And I was kind of confused. And I'm like, I got into Hun? He's like, yeah, you got into Hun. But that's not emotional abuse. To tell a child that nobody liked her, a panel of adults who she's trying to impress and show up for, and to tell her she didn't get into a school that she got into, that my stepfather would have rather sent me to, by the way. She didn't send me there because there was a music program, just so you know. But that's not emotional abuse either. I know. Crazy, crazy, crazy. This is a fallacy since every family has a certain level of dysfunction, pain, toxicity, and narcissism. One has to believe that other families do not suffer so they can justify cutting off with their parents. Why? And you're right, every family does have a degree of dysfunction. Absolutely. It's not that there's any perfect family out there. It's not like there's any family out there that doesn't have, you know, some people in the family who are problematic. It's that in run-of-the-mill, regular garden variety dysfunction, everybody doesn't back the person who's dysfunctional. They back the person who's in a position where they need protection. They stand up to one another. They have conversations. There's accountability. There's not one or two people in the family targeted as being the bad ones all the time. There's room for people to evolve and grow. There's a support system. There's a genuine love and care in a regular run-of-the-mill garden variety dysfunctional family. There's a willingness to change. There's an ability to be in those relationships that stand the test of time because foundationally there's a lot of safety and love and respect. In a narcissistic family system, none of that exists because they operate like a cult. Okie dokie. Let's see. Of course, these same children who cut off their parents don't seem to consider the emotional abuse and that no contact with parents is the cruelest thing you can do to them. And I put to them as my own emphasis. I didn't do anything to my mother. I did something to myself, to save myself, to end the cycle of abuse for my children. My mother didn't factor into that equation in terms of what happens to her next. I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't giving her the silent treatment. I wasn't threatening to cut her off even or anything like that. And we'd been on and off and we've always had a horrible relationship because she treated me horribly. She created the relationship. Parents create the relationship. tail wagging the dog in the way you look at the world. Children don't have the capacity to choose whether or not to love their parents, by the way. They're born loving their parents. They're born trusting them. There's a bond in place, and there's also a contract. And when the parent violates that contract, well, they violate the relationship. You sound like an estranged parent. My daughter, she abandoned me. Look what she did to me. I'm just an innocent victim of my child. Fuck off. Like, really? Okay. Oh, dear. Oh, the cruelest thing. What about the cruelest thing that a parent can do to a child? Can we talk about that? Nah. I mean, emotional abuse. What's emotional abuse? The only cases where complete cutting off from parents could be justified is in severe, I always love when people use this word, physical or sexual abuse. That's like saying, if it's not that bad, it's not justified. And I always ask people, what does it's not that bad mean? Abuse is abuse. Who gets to measure the severity of it? You or the recipient of the abuse? Emotional violence, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, they all rewire our brains in exactly the same way, just so you know. They do. So, maybe take a break from reading the Bible and start reading studies on the impact of emotional abuse. Not just on children, just in general. And then read the impact on children. Children whose minds are developing. Children who are learning through observation. Children who have no frame of reference other than the ones that their parents demonstrate to them. Children who are either learning how to regulate their emotions, disconnect from their emotions, or are just ending up being very outwardly emotional. Not too emotional. I'm not saying too sensitive. I'm staying away from that very purposely because I don't believe that there's too anything when it comes to emotions. I believe that sometimes we struggle to regulate. And for children in particular, who teaches them how to regulate their emotions? And how do they learn how to regulate their emotions? Ding, ding, ding. Did you get it right? The parent. I am very snarky, sparky. The more I read this, I'm like, don't worry, you're not ruining my day. I know you're trying, but anywho. Oh, by the way, you know about the window. My mother liked to do the scalding hot baths. That was her other way of physically abusing me. And my grandfather and grandmother CSA'd me. So I have all the forms of abuse. The primary reason I went no contact is because of the emotional abuse that continued in adulthood. They couldn't perpetrate the other types of abuse on me anymore because I was an adult. So the only abuse we were left with, was the emotional violence. I also went no contact to protect my own children. Who, by the way, before you say, oh, your kids are going to do what you did, my eldest daughter did. So you were right, but not for the reasons that you probably think. And at the end of the day, she went no contact with me for about 2-ish years, 20 years ago. And we healed that relationship together. She calls me for parenting advice. I have 2 teenage grandchildren, one of which is heading off to university this coming week. Very exciting times in our family. And I deserved her not to talk to me. It doesn't matter that I was 17 when I had her. It doesn't matter that I didn't seek out therapy, that I was young, that I had all these things stacked against me. None of that matters because you know what? Even though I was still a child with a child, I was the adult in the room. And I fucked up, for a lack of a better word. I didn't abuse my child or any of my children for that matter. And all of them would attest to that. And if you don't believe me, well, you can pick up my book and you can read the foreword and you'll know exactly what my children think of me. I did things where I was very emotionally immature, very self-centered, and I should have done better. And that was the conversation she was met with when she told me the things that I had done that hurt her and what she needed me to do in present time, which I did. And here we are 20 years later, solid. Imagine that. I notice all the children who cut off their parents tend to be in a lot of pain too, even though they try to cover it up with a forced smile. Oh my God, I can't. Yeah, we go through a lot of pain. You know, the worst pain is that every single time my mother did something or my grandparents did something to violate my trust, to hurt me, to abuse me, whatever you want to call it, to harm me, whatever it is, they altered the trajectory of my life. They changed something in me. They broke something in me every single time. I love what I do for a living now. I love the life that I've built for myself. It's pretty fucking awesome. However, is this the life that I would have chosen? No, probably not. They took away my choices and I had to mourn those losses. I mourned those losses for a long time, never knowing who I would have been, what I could have been, going to school with my peers, not ending up living on the streets at the age of 13. So much loss. Learning how to be confident in myself in my adult life because I wasn't given the opportunity to have self-confidence as a child growing up. Learning that I was lovable didn't happen until my adulthood. That's a lot of loss. There's a lot of relationships that I've left behind because I didn't know I was good enough. There's a lot of relationships that I ended up in with people who also harmed me because I did the love I know. That's a lot of pain. You know, the worst pain though, for me, is that I will never know what it's like to have a mom who loves me, ever. I don't get a do-over. It's never going to happen for me. And that, I think, is probably always going to leave something behind that hurts. Does it mean that I'm forcing a smile? Well, I just did. Now I'm not. No. I have a really good life and I live in a tremendous amount of gratitude for the healing that I've done, for the people that I have in my life who are in my corner. There was a long time there where I was completely alone and I had no one. That's pain. Does that mean I'm unhappy because that makes me sad? You're a very black and white thinker, aren't you? Yeah. There are children who have been physically and sexually abused, but actually still communicate with their parents, which proves that it's a subjective response. What does that even fucking mean? Am I lost here? It seems so word salady, a subjective response. They've done studies on children who have had their hand put on a stove by their own parent and they still want that parent. And it's not because they want to be in a relationship with that parent who does that. It's because they want that parent to love them and because they're desperate for that connection. It's not a rational way of thinking. And children can't critically think about, whether or not they deserve that treatment. So choosing to be in that relationship, well, it's not an option. It's not a choice. It's a drive. It shows you actually how strong the bond is for that child to still want that parent after being so incredibly violated. And as far as subjective, no, it's a different situations offer different levels of healing or no levels of healing. So for example, for sure, there are adult children who are in relationships with parents who physically abuse them. For sure. Sometimes that abuse was due to alcohol use, for example. And then the parent got clean and is sober and is doing well in their life. And in that process, helped to heal their child's wounds so that they could be a safe person for them to be in a relationship with them in adulthood. So is that subjective, or is that just not every single situation is the same thing? You are on a platform for narcissistic family systems, the survivors of people who come from those systems in particular, basically cult families. That is a very specific type of abuse that occurs, continues, and if you stand up against it, you are shunned and kicked off the island because you're the scapegoat and you're already set up not to be believed, and nobody wants to end up off the island alone the way they see you being punished. So it's not about subjectivity. It's about people come from different backgrounds, and there are situations where the parents actually take accountability and heal the relationship. And then there's some where they've just done it generationally for such a long time, they don't know that there's another way for them, that they can not be in relationships with people who hurt them. That happens all the time too. And those people, well, they tend to be the ones who wear the fake smile because they're continually being lit on fire by staying with people who don't treat them well. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. Subjective. Okay, you can go against God's commandment of honoring your mother and father, but you will feel the pain. Snarky. I understand if you've been so emotionally abused, you don't even need to talk to them. Oh, so now you're recognizing emotional abuse. Which is it? You could just send them a Christmas card or a text message wishing them a happy birthday. You don't have to go to the ultimate extreme. Oh, so you can just sweep it under the rug and pretend that everything's okay by at least doing that for them. Why? Why? How much are greeting cards? Like $5 or something? My mother isn't worth a $5 greeting card. She isn't worth the time that it takes to get one of those cards. And by the way, one of the best reliefs I experienced going no contact was never having to get her a Mother's Day card ever again, because that would force me to be in an aisle of cards reading about mothers that I didn't know. I'm like, where are these mothers? Because I didn't have one. I wanted to find one that I could give a card like that to. Those card aisles were devastatingly sad for me. The birthday ones as well, but Mother's Day, takes the cake. Opening card after card. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for loving me. Today is your special day. Oh, ouch. Pain. Fake smile. Now, this is the kind of thing where you've got an estranged parent who wants to receive cards so that they can look like they were in a relationship with their child and not admit to the fact that their kid doesn't talk to them anymore. They want something that makes them look good. Oh yeah, so-and-so's just busy, but I got this beautiful birthday card. Yeah, you can fuck right off with that. And I'm just going to leave it right here. Enough said. Ciao. Oh, no, ciao is... Oh, did you know? Okay, so I've said this a couple of times. So I'm in Palermo, I know, with my little fake smile and my unhappy life. I'm in Sicily, and I'm going to be going to Taormina. I hope I said that right. Catania, Malta, all these different places, independently on my own dime, which my mother taught me I would never be able to do. And my best friend is coming out to meet me for some of the travels. And anyway, I learned that ciao is not really ciao. And like ciao, they use for hello. And maybe goodbye too. I don't know. Actually, I need to find out about that. However, it's arrivederci. So, yeah. I really need to learn Italian. Not a fake smile.